What's up, players? Welcome to a Spoilercast episode of Ready Press Play. So, yeah, I don't know how to do these intros and stuff like that, but just typically we just talk about like a weekly podcast stuff. We do gaming news and all that good jazz. But for this one, it's just like a one off special. We call them DLC episodes. I think this is DLC 13, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I lost count, but we'll put the
You know,
official
the
count in
funny
there.
the funny thing, Louis, is that I actually made the silent decision, and I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell you to stop counting the DLCs a while ago because I was like, whatever. I felt like I don't know. I kind of felt like the count didn't necessarily add anything to it, so I started just writing like out whenever I edited, I'd write the episode name and then put in like DLC in parentheses at the end,
And then I
but
would
then
come
not put a
back, and
number.
then I would come in
Yes.
and like turn it around and be like, "Let me add that number in after you."
E-
Yeah.
exactly. And it's funny because I just realized we never talked about that at all. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just started after a while. I just started feeling like the number didn't really do anything to it, other than for our own like count. But I kind of look at it as okay. So this is what I'm trying to say. I kind of look at our numbered regular episodes as like our canon,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like some of these other, these spoiler casts and stuff, they're like one-off, sort of spin-offs, right?
Yeah.
Like they're spin-offs. So
Other
I
tales,
was
if you will. Nah.
yes. So I was kind of doing that approach where, sometimes there's Kingdom Hearts 2 and there's Kingdom Hearts 3, but then there's also Birth by Sleep, right? And so that's kind of how I was looking at these. But
And then the
anyway,
worst
yeah,
part
good
is
good
that
to
we
be
have
here.
we have two different kinds of DLCs. We have like the DLCs that are like within the canon, and then the DLCs that are spoiler casts that are like completely, yeah. But whatever.
Yeah. We got to figure that out. We got to figure out a way to organize that at some point because it's kind of messy actually.
But yes, I'm your host Louis Menchaca, and there's my Twitter handle. And then over here to my, I guess to you guys, screen left is gonna be Mr. Daniel Lima right over there.
Hello, hello. Well, that would I would be in the left or the right or whatever if they were watching the video at the Level One Gaming YouTube channel. But if you're
No,
listening to us on podcast services all across the globe, then that's good as well.
DLCs belong to us. It's on the Ready Play
Oh, that's
Network
true.
YouTube channel. Get it right.
That's true. I'm still like having a hard time sorting this out. It's like, we're basically Bethesda, right? It's like we belong to Microsoft, but then, these games are going to be PlayStation exclusives for a little bit, but then they're probably going to go Microsoft eventually, etc. So, yeah, so we got this deal with Level 1 Gaming. Our show is basically Deathloop in a way, is what I'm trying to say. But
Yeah.
anyhow,
Yeah, so yeah, we can subscribe here for more DLCs and stuff like that. So we have our DLCs belong to us, and if I ever do Ready Play Movies as a video, it belongs to us, as well as any episode from Ready Press Play from 1 through 59 belongs to us. So if they ever decide to upload it there, but anyways, so yeah. Enough about us, about Ready Press Play. You're here to talk. We're here to talk about like a game here. We got a spoiler cast here for you guys. We're going to be talking about It Takes Two. And before we get into any spoilers, we're just going to give a general review and general impressions to keep things above board for all you listeners out there. We'll give you like a time code in the description and the video, the YouTube video, as well as in the show notes, so that way you can know when do you want to tune out if you don't want to know anything about spoilers. So yeah, Dan, is there anything else that I need to say about this before we get into it?
now I think we're good.
I think I covered all the bases here. So with that said, Dan, I'll go ahead and let you open the floor up here. So, what are your thoughts on the game? Just general thoughts.
I think so It Takes Two came out earlier this year, 2021. And I haven't played a lot of 2021 games, but I think even if I had, I'd say that It Takes Two is probably my game of the year so far. I think it's a really good game. I think it's not, a perfect game, and I think it perhaps has some flaws, but it's even hard to think about that honestly because I just had so much fun while playing the game and while going through that adventure with you that I I didn't even really pay attention much to the issues that the game could otherwise had. I just kind of had a good time with it all along. It was a lot of fun. It's another game by Hazelight Studios. It's another game by Josef Fares, who I'm a big fan of, been a fan of for a really long time. And the main thing I want to say about it is that I would say that this, out of the three Joseph Fares games, I think this is the one that has the best gameplay. And I
Hmm.
really appreciated that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. By the way, I put the Wikipedia up on screen for those
Hmm.
that are watching. It's March 26th, and when the game came out, and we're it's June 9th when we're recording the spoiler cast. So it's kind of crazy how we've practically been consistently playing it this entire time, and it lasted us this long into the year. It's like a whole we dedicated
Yeah,
almost damn near a whole quarter to this game, if you think about it. Um,
that's true.
but as far as the game itself, I mean, it did keep us coming back for more. Like I fell in love with this game from like the minute go. You know, it's just right there, and it's not it's not so much like very like yeah, how do I put this? It's not one of those games where it's like an inside joke and you have to be a Joseph Fares stan in order to get everything. I feel like if you are, it accentuates it, but it doesn't. You
Oh
don't
yeah.
need to you don't need to know all the inside jokes and the fuck the Oscars and all that stuff to just enjoy the game. The game
I
stands
will
on
tell
its
you
own.
that that's something that I straight up did not expect. All the nods to either Joseph Fares as a character himself or the two previous games, which are Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons and A Way Out. It definitely made me really giddy every time we ran into something in the game that was a
Yeah.
reference to these things. So that was really cool.
Yes, it was awesome. I think we were just like gushing about it. I think I wanted to like make a Twitch highlight, but I didn't. But like it was worthy of a highlight and stuff like that. And also like just in fact that some of the Easter eggs they deliberately programmed them to be achievements and stuff like that. That's really awesome, especially when they're like the little diamond achievements. It makes you feel very special.
Mhm. Yeah, there were references to other games as well. By the way, it wasn't just Joseph Ferris's own stuff, but there were like some Zelda references in
Oh, of
there
course,
and a
yeah,
few other things. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's always fun as well.
So ultimately, like the game is a bit of an evolution from a Way Out. So you know, if we're familiar with the Way Out, it's the mechanics of two people working together playing a game cooperatively, and so we do that here in this game. The game sort of like ups the ante and really plays with game mechanics and stuff that A Way Out was kind of sort of limited by. Because if you think about A Way Out, it's very realistic. It's grounded in reality, but this one is a little bit more whimsical and fantastical. That Joseph Fares was able to just come up with ideas and level designs that are just very trippy and acid trippy, and ultimately it made for a very enjoyable experience. It was a game that ultimately, like, I feel like I was smiling throughout. However,
Hmm.
there were a couple of times, like especially towards the middle, where I felt it was a bit of a lull. Maybe because
Hmm.
like, it wore out its welcome. We've been playing it for so many hours, but like ultimately, I don't know. I feel like on the one hand, I would bitch about A Way Out being too short, but also I almost want to bitch that this game is too long. But at the same time, if I were to go between the two, most people would say A Way Out is better because it was a sweet spot. But honestly, like
Hmm.
I'm the kind of guy that loves more. More is more, and I feel like that's a win.
Hmm.
So ultimately, I'm very positive on the game, even on the game length as well. I feel like if you're like a couple or just anyone playing a game together, it's going to be one of those bonding moments that just kind of keeps you coming back for more. So
The amount of mini games in this game is crazy too. Like as you go through the story, I believe there is a number that you could see on the menu at the end. I think it was 25
yes,
different mini games, and Lewis and I were trying really hard to find all of them, and we didn't even find all of them.
we got
Um,
close. We were
and
at 22.
and the other thing I want to say, Louis, is that you don't really know this, I think, because I wasn't being very open about it. I wasn't talking out loud about it. But you do know that I started playing this game originally with Leah, right?
Yes, you told me
Remember
that you
that?
played the just the tutorial, like the first like
Y-
opening
Yeah,
minutes, and then you
yeah,
stopped, right?
yeah. I did that before our first stream, but after that, Leah and I actually played through the rest of the game together as well. So I actually played through the whole game twice. I played through the whole game with you, and I played through the whole game.
You fucking bitch! I
Oh
you mean you were
dare,
acting surprised by some things like on the stream?
oh dare me play the relationship game with my wife,
I know, right?
and not,
You're supposed to choose
well,
me. You met me first.
what I wanted to get to though is that I'll tell you this: there were times where me and you were ahead, and there were times where me and her were ahead, and
Oh.
that I faked it in the game. And but I did a really good job at doing that. um,
Wait, so
but
who rolled credits first?
I'm not. That's a secret because you'll both potentially be met with a with a possibility there. So I'm keeping that information to myself.
I just want to let it be known for all you audio listeners is that I'm flipping Dan
A lot.
off.
The way that a lot of it happened is that we were like kind of get ahead on the stream, and then Leah and I would play and get a little bit ahead of that, and then we would get again, and then it just kept going like that. So I'm keeping certain things to. I don't want a divorce here potentially from either. So
Uh,
Um, but what I wanted to say is that a lot of that means that a lot of times, like playing the same segments twice, I would either play them first with you and then later with Leo. Since I played first with her and then later with you, and I was afraid that I was gonna get burned out from the. I was even doing the same things because I was playing as the male character in both. Um, but I actually enjoyed it because somehow it felt like the gameplay itself was enough to keep it interesting to me. So like I enjoyed my time with it both times. And I'll tell you this too is that the experience was slightly different because number one, me and you did a lot more exploring than Lee and I did.
okay.
We kind of mainlined it a little bit more. And versus me and you were going out of the beaten path. So me and you found a lot more mini games than I did with Leah.
Oh.
In fact, there were a few times where like would find a mini game and I had played it before, but most times it was my first time playing it when we played the mini games together. And the other thing is just like playing with someone else, like the way that the interaction happens throughout the game and the way that you do things in the game together and the order. There were a lot of levels where like you do things in slightly different order and stuff. So even though it is a linear game and it's not a game that was necessarily set up to be replayable, I felt like the game is fun enough to where you could replay it and still have a with a different person.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Plus, I would say like I kind of feels like just Leah and I are just two completely different personalities as far as like how we would
yes.
play with game or how we would tackle something like that or just I'm sure like style wise we're gonna just tackle these situations, these puzzles differently. Even though there's only one answer, but like our approach is completely different. I would say just thinking about it like just on an intellectual level. But yeah, so I would say we're pretty good there on non spoilery thoughts there. Overall, we both are very receptive to this game. Very good glowing reviews, I would say. Um, I don't know if we do you want to do the like a number score at the end, or do you want to just do it now for the non spoiler listeners?
Oh, that's interesting. Have we done number scored on this before? I don't remember if
I
we
think
that's
I did.
something we
I was the
typically do.
one who does number scores, and you just sort of like, and then you just kind of like play it fast and loose.
I feel like I would give this a 9.5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has that like the word amazing does come to mind when I think of like the IGN scale. But for some odd reason, I don't know, but I just kind of felt like I was kind of like, I don't know. I say the number 8.5 comes to my mind, and I don't necessarily know
Hmm.
why. So maybe
No, that's
I'll articulate it throughout this spoiler cast, and maybe I'll change my answer. But
yeah. Let's get into it then. Do you want
okay,
to go full spoilers from
all
here
right.
on out?
From here on out, it's all spoilers. We're gonna be going by every beats, every chapter, every boss fight, and all the gags and the references. We'll be saying it all. So if you guys haven't played the game, go ahead and check out now. Come back later when you've played the game. And for everyone else, let's get into it. I'll go ahead and kick things off here first, and I'll go ahead and just let's go ahead and go with the mini games because I went ahead and just created this chart, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just throw this chart out here, and I want to just sort of like dissect the mini games. We can spend as much time as we want, or we can just sort of gloss over it. Who knows how long we'll stay on this segment here, but I will go ahead and pull up this Excel sheet that we can see here on screen, and Dan can see. I have
Hmm.
here, we have 22 games that we have discovered. And of the 22 games, I won 66% of them. So, like, for every three games we played, I won two of them and Dan won one of them. So,
Okay.
I won 14 of them. Dan won seven. And on one game, it was a draw. Like, there was no winner. It was the horse
Hmm.
racing game where you have to sort of just press the button to jump. And as long as you didn't miss the jump, then you're good. And like the horse races race at the exact same speed. You don't have any control over that. So horse racing, draw. But a lot of these games that I found were, especially early on, the earlier games we were doing like best of ones a lot of times. We weren't doing like, no, towards the later stuff we were doing like best of threes as like the rule, or we would do this rule where it's like we would do a practice round then best of three or something like that. So
Hmm.
one game in particular that I did see that Dan completely blew it out, who blew me out the water, was Garden Swings. I had 0 wins and he won 5 of them in a row. Like he totally blew me out the water. But it was really crazy because there was a lot of pressure on me because I wanted to keep my winning streak alive. As you can see, like I had won like the 4 previous games in a row and all that stuff. And what else? What else can we glean from this here?
Here's something I want to point out, right? So if you look at like the first half of the game, if we look at horse derby, right, it's basically the halfway point between this.
Yeah.
Like by the time we get to horse derby, if you count, I had won 5 mini games and you had won 5 mini games as well, and then we had a draw. So at that point, and then halfway through the game we were completely tied,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then we're like, and I say this because when you look at like the final statistics that you gave, you would think that you just dominated the whole way through, but like we're completely tied by the halfway point in the game. And then for some reason from that point on, then you won the vast majority of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a streak of bad luck at some points in there. I know that especially on our final stream, I was dealing with a lot of lag,
Yes, I was
and I
gonna
want to
say that.
blame.
Yeah, like I would say volleyball and musical chairs. I remember specifically you had like lag out the ass that you had to deal with.
Yeah. But that aside, the rest, and there was something really weird with the slot cars, which is that I had one instance where in my screen my car drove past the finish line before yours did, and then it said Lewis won, and I was like, what?
Yeah, same thing
But
with me on the race before that. I passed the finish line first, but it said Dan won. So I was like, but
yeah.
we were literally like neck and neck on my screen. We were like literally, it was like this much difference. So, yeah, from like the whole client side thing, it makes sense that we were a little off. But ultimately, like the slot cars one. Let me look at the where's it at? Where's it at? There it
It
is.
starts the
It's
end. You
3-0. Not too bad. Yeah. Yeah. There was the last 2 games that we did. We did best of one, like no practice round. We just went to it. Like chess was a longer game, and me
yeah.
being a former chess master from high school, I totally had the advantage on that one. And
I got to tell you something about chess, which is that like I've always been interested in chess and I've always liked it, like the rules of the game, the concept of the game. But I was never good at it. Like all the times I tried to play it, like I just got destroyed by anybody I played with pretty much. Like I remember I was like 16 and I went to play with my brother who was 4 years younger than me. And I had just kind of learned the rules and I was like starting to learn how to play the game. And then I taught my brother and his first time playing pretty much, I think it was, he beat me in the game and being much younger. So I am just bad at chess in general, but I will say that in that particular game, I was also like towards the end, I started just doing a lot of stupid decisions because I was running out of time, and you told me, which I didn't know, you told me that if I ran out of time, I would lose. So because of that, I was like, oh shit, okay, so I just gotta like I just gotta do something here so that I don't run
yeah, that's
final
right.
like
Yeah.
my final like 10 moves, which were terrible, were partially because of that. So just saying that in my defense.
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
The other thing too is that up to that point, I was playing overly aggressive, even putting my own pieces at risk, which is the bad way of playing chess. But also because I was thinking that if we ran out of time, the person who had destroyed more pieces from the adversary or captured more pieces or whatever it's called would have won. So I was under that expectation. But
Oh yeah.
regardless,
Okay, so you didn't know about like the chess rules with the timer and stuff like that. So
yes,
yeah, like
I
regardless of
had
what
never
happens.
played
Oh,
chess
okay.
with a timer.
Yeah,
That's
regardless of what happens, whoever runs out of time first loses, no matter who's in the lead or whatever. So if you can actually complete the game, but like checkmate before the time runs out, then the winner wins that way too. So, yeah, I guess I didn't know that you didn't know that, by the way. I just assumed that you did. So I didn't tell you till like when you had like a minute and a half left and stuff like that. Um,
Now, can we just give him credit for like creating a full-fledged chess game within the game? Because that's not that easy. I mean, it's not. I'm not gonna sit here and say it's extremely hard to code a game of chess. Like a lot of people have done it, but it takes work. Like there are companies out there specifically making chess games, and they'll spend quite a bit of time just to make a chess game. And the fact that they did that on top of making a whole other game, I want to give them props. I want to give them props for that because a lot of these other mini games are relatively simple. They are things that somebody could probably have thrown together relatively quickly. That's not the case with chess. Like chess has very specific rules. The pieces move in very specific ways, and they even went as far as implementing kind of more advanced rules like that you're familiar with,
Such as
um,
castling. Yeah.
such as castling and also the pawn um there is a thing where like the pawn can capture like the pawn typically captures diagonally, but there is a situation where it can capture vertically or something like
Yeah, I know what it's called.
I
It's I don't remember what it's. I think it's called en passant is what it's called.
yes.
If I'm not
So
mistaken.
all of those things, like all of those more advanced rules are implemented in the game. And it's very cool that they put so much effort into this one thing, which is just a mini game amongst 24 other ones in the game, and it goes to show it's a good demonstration of how much work and effort was really put into this project. And I'm overall just so like kind of positively surprised by the production value of this game that despite being like a smaller studio as far as I understand, they were able to put so much more production value into this when compared to something like A Way Out even.
Yeah,
um
you're right. I
yeah.
do want to give a shout out to a bunch of these mini games. So first off, they brought back a mini game from A Way Out, which is basically the button mashing game. Where in
Yeah.
Way Out it's like an arm wrestle, and in this game it's a tug of war. We
Yeah.
did a best of one on tug of war, and I won. So I won both times. And let's see what else. I just wanted to say I was very like annoyed with the batting team, where it's like you're taking like a swinging a bat in like in a
Mhm.
circular bat fashion, and I kept on mistiming it. And meanwhile, Dan is just hitting it like perfectly and just like revolving it and everything. And I'm like, he even like showboated on me and said, "Oh, let me hit it backwards," and then just. And I forgot how it worked, but he could still get points going backwards as well or whatever. I don't remember, but it was ridiculous, and I hated him for it. What else? I think anything else that you see here as far as like the the name of the games, anything that you see that you were reminded of, like maybe snail racing or
Yeah, I'm gonna say that the ice race was one of my favorites.
it felt
Even
Mario
though I
Kart.
lost that one, it
Yeah.
was really fun. And that's the other thing too is like they were able. This game has so many different mechanics that they implement. Basically, there's a different mechanic on every different level, and the mechanics are explored in a lot of different ways. And yet they all felt so good. Like I was surprised by how everything felt good in this game. Like even when we were underwater, the underwater controls felt good, and even when
Oh
we were
yeah.
skating on ice felt good. Like all these different mechanics and controls, they all were comfortable and fun to play. The fact that they were able to do that to achieve that level of quality with the quantity as well, with the amount of different mechanics that they have, I think is very impressive, and it's part of why I thought to rate this game so high,
Hmm.
right? Because you play something like the ice race, which is just this mini game and it's just this use of this mechanic, and it felt as good as if it was like an ice racing dedicated game. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It didn't feel like this true horned in thing that barely works and that doesn't work as well as the rest of the mechanics. Everything just felt really good. So
Yeah, I would say the mini games had way more polish than they did on the way
yes,
out. I would say.
absolutely.
Yeah. One on the final topic of the mini game, I just wanted to give a shout out or an anti shout out to the track runner game. It was like we were in some Tron level game and we had to like a race and avoid these walls and stuff like that. And I choked so hard at the end of the final race. And I was if I'd have just won that or made it draw because we had a draw in that one. If I'd have made it draw one more time, it would have basically like evened it out. And I fucked up and I was super bummed. And I'm like,
That
okay,
one was so funny too because like
we both
at
choked.
first yeah, At first, I think I won, and then on the second one, we both had perfect runs.
Hmm.
And then on the third one, we both messed up a lot, but I just happened to mess up like one or two less times than you did,
I
and
know.
then I ended up winning. Yeah.
I know. If I think it was like if it was mine to win, then we would have been a draw basically. But yeah,
Hmm.
I just wanted to say that one, and also just giving you the final stats here because there was like a lot of like 1-0s, 2-1s, and like all this other stuff here.
Mm.
That if you were to add up all the total number of wins and the total number of wins, like including like the ones that where it's like lopsided or whatever, it wasn't even that bad. It wasn't even like, and guess I also just want to say that this number includes even practice runs as well, so you gotta like maybe like factor that in. But ultimately, like it was 26-22, so it's not like it was a complete like runaway success where like I'm blowing Dan out the water every time. So it was just
Hmm.
more of like just this is how it played out, and ultimately it was 26-22, and there was a total of 6 draws throughout the entire thing. So it made it that much more fun as far as like damn, it was so close and stuff like that. So um, yeah, I guess that's it for
Cool.
the mini games there. So we can go
Yeah.
ahead and move on.
And
So
and obviously, this game was not a competitive game. It was a cooperative adventure, right? So this is just kind of like this extra aspect of the game, but that is not really the focus of the story and the purpose of the game, of course.
true, true, true. But it was definitely like the first thing that I was thinking of, especially when talking about this game. I think it sticks with
Yeah.
me. It stays with me like more so than anything else. Uh,
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
I,
It
I,
wasn't a slight at you, by the way. I just wanted to clarify for the listeners.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But there is one thing I wanted to talk about here, and that's just the second thing that comes to my mind. Not so much the game as far as like the chapters and the boss fights or whatever. We can get into that later. But the second thing that comes to my mind is the characters. Like this husband and wife duo, they kind of suck, don't you think? Or no? Or am I like
I don't
overstating
okay,
it?
so um the story of the game starts with this couple that is going through a divorce, and they're supposedly fighting a lot. They're having these issues. They have a little daughter who is very sad about it. She cries over these dolls that she made, and then both of them kind of fall asleep or whatever and wake up in this magic world, this fantasy world where they've turned into the dolls, and they're in this you know version of this house that is so much bigger than they are, and they're so everything becomes every tool, every object in the house becomes a fantastical element. And they got to go through all these challenges so that they can basically find love and fall in love with each other again. And all of this is they're being carried through this adventure by a magical book named Dr. Hakim, which is a character on its own as well, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But all right, so let's start talking about the two main
Leads.
characters
Yeah.
here. um what are their names again? I totally forgot right now. I totally blanked on it, but it was um
Let's see.
May,
Cody and May.
Cody and May. There we go. Um, there's a few things that were done here that I thought were really interesting and that I liked. So I like that they kind of played around gender stereotypes a little bit. So you typically expect in a more traditional, tropey couple situation like this that the man or the husband would be the person that is the provider, that is paying the bills, that is working long hours, etc., while the wife is taking care of the house. I'm not saying that that's how things are. I'm just saying that typically that is the stereotype, right? That for good or bad, that's the stereotype that's usually presented in these kinds of stories. And in this story, we got the opposite. So we had in Cody this guy who was a stay-at-home dad who focused on taking care of the house, taking care of the daughter, who was interested in gardening and all these other things. And you had on May somebody that was more kind of like very hardworking, very calculating. She was
Career.
all about
Career
you
driven.
know career driven,
Yeah.
exactly. And she was more about logic, and he while he was more about like fantasy and emotion and stuff like that. So it was interesting to see the fact that with the creation of these characters that they kind of reversed the gender stereotypes, and I don't think that was accidental, and I really like that they did that. I thought it was really cool, especially nowadays in 2021, where you do actually see a lot of families that are set up in a similar way this one that are not, the traditional format of the nuclear family that was the case in the 50s or whatever. So I thought that helped kind of set the game apart in its story, make it like feel a little bit more unique and also more. So I like that.
Okay.
Now that being said, yes, the characters themselves, like they're not they're not extremely likable characters. I'll give you that. And I think I don't know. I don't know if they're meant to be. It comes across like they're not. It comes across like other characters in the game were trying to be set up to be more likable, while these people just kind of end up coming across as annoying and also kind of self-centered, right? Which
Yes.
is, but they, in order to show us why they would be pursuing a divorce from each other, I feel like there was almost like no way around that in some ways, right? Like they had to make these characters at least sort of unlikable so that we could buy the
Yeah,
narrative of why.
they were a little toxic at times. Is yeah,
Yes.
not just to them to each other, but to themselves as well, and to the people they
Hmm.
cared about. Um, and it's really interesting how like their house was in like disarray and like things are out of repair, like their clock, their vacuum cleaner, and their garden. Like everything is just sort of like it
Hmm.
was like a literal metaphorical thing where it's like showcasing how everything is not well kept. And I just want to say like it's so interesting like where they took these characters and stuff like that, where like there was this one part where Cody and May are trying to make their daughter cry on purpose and they relish and shower in her tears. And of course I say that when like without context, but still like just hearing that just sounds like
Hmm.
shitty parents to me, if you think about
Yeah.
it.
They were more focused on getting back to their real bodies and kind of solving their problem at hand than they were focused at, in their own morals or being good people, right?
Yeah.
So that's the
It was
reality of their
it
characters.
was the
Yeah.
hardest thing ever because you're literally like attacking a plushy doll, like this overly like happy, gleeful, like, oh, can't we just be friends? Like it was such a just like heart crushing thing where they're making us do this, and like it feels like we're killing a child is how it felt like, and it was so
Yeah.
over dramatic, and she's pleading for her life, and then you throw her off and she's falling, and then she just like lands with a squeak like a little plush, and I'm like but it's so over dramatic and stuff like that, and just like that moment, it's like for me I could never really like them ever, and I don't know. It seems like they wanted to go with the redemption story, and of course, their characters grow to mature and to like love each other and all that stuff. And
But do they?
that's
But do
that.
they?
That was gonna be where I was gonna go next. Is like, do you think it was earned? Because I'm not entirely sure that the verdict is been rendered on that.
Yeah. So earlier I said that this game, in my opinion, had the best gameplay of all three of Joseph Fares's games. But when it comes to story, I think this actually might be the story I like the least. And yes, but that doesn't mean I
Yeah.
don't even think it's that bad. But I love the story in Brothers of Teo Sons. I think it's basically flawless, and I really liked the story in A Way Out as well in a different way. But with this one, I felt like the story. Um, I don't know. I mean, like the game is the story, the story is kind of the weakest part of the game, right? Like there's no major surprises in the story. There's nothing really that makes you that happy, or you don't really root for the characters that much. It's just kind of the story
Tropey as
feels like
well.
it's just kind of
Yeah.
yeah, like this story just feels like it's kind of there. Um, and the story in A Way Out was tropey, and it was pretty much like a collection of all these different action movie tropes, but I actually felt like in this weird way, I felt like the story there had a little bit more heart, and you felt a little bit more attached to the characters themselves, the main characters, than I did in this game. In this game, I felt like, I in some ways I almost felt like I was playing like a Mario platform thing, like a co-op Mario platformer, and that the story was just there to connect a level to the next, and to be like an excuse for what they were doing. Um, so even though I know that story is a very important part of Joseph Fares's games, and that he himself comes from a background in filmmaking, to me this game was more about the gameplay itself than the story, because the a divorce story, I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't really have a any kind of meaningful payoff in my opinion. It's very like it's very much just there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it almost kind of did feel a little unearned. I would say, just in the sense that, like, I don't know, it's just, let's just ignite our passions, and then there it is. Like, it almost kind of felt like they just rushed to the ending and stuff like that. They were having like this
Hmm.
emotional climax where like May finally sang in front of an audience, and it was all beautiful. But I don't know, I just didn't really buy it. She didn't even sing a song; she just hummed. You know what I mean? They could have at
Right.
least done more with that.
And there's a few interesting things here to think about though. Like I guess what they were trying to say is that they were trying through these things that they were doing together in this world, they were supposed to be reminded of the reasons why they fell in love with each other, right? So the part where they're in the snow globe and they're basically in the location where they were at for a skiing trip, like that's where Cody proposed to May, so they relive that moment and then they later get to experience kind of the each other's passions and the things that help them fall in love for each other, etc. So in that sense you can look at it and like try to glean something from that, as in like that's what the story was trying to tell us. These characters had forgotten why they were in love with each other and they had to find that again. But I feel like that feels like it's not enough. You know what I mean? Like that feels like there should have been more of that. There should have been more about them learning to accept each other and learning to deal with each other's flaws and how to argue more healthily and like all these other things
And it, like,
that they
yeah,
didn't really do,
and
right?
solve like actual root causes of things and stuff like that. Because one of the things that I did notice is that even what they were, when you were saying about, like, going back to the ski trip, even when you think about like the game and stuff like that, these characters throughout the entirety of the game until the finish line were acting annoyed with their tasks and objectives.
Yeah.
And it's not like they truly like fell in love along the way again and stuff like that. They were just trying to get the hell out of Dodge the entire time.
Yes.
And so it really is a situation where it's a little unbelievable. And on top of that, as far as a plot wise, I would say like we needed like a rewrite, a little bit of or like a script doctoring here thing, because um, one of the things that we even like commented on during our live streams, like I think in part two or whatever, where we were like saying like this is a bit of an oversimplification of a reason
Yes.
why a couple would divorce and stuff like that. They're not really tackling anything like big or major and stuff like that. Like hell, they didn't even like cover like a financial like reason for divorce or whatever like that, because
Yeah.
most marriages end in divorce because of finances as well. It's like they were
Yeah.
trying to like do this thing where they're like just very, I don't know, very childlike. But like one thing we know about from like things like Pixar movies, which I guess this is trying to be a Pixar movie if you think about it, is that Pixar has a way of tackling these complex, very heady things like in Soul and Inside Out, and just making it so it's easily digestible to even a child, but also very thematic and very rich for an adult. And that's one of the things
Yeah.
that I don't think they did a good enough job to warrant that. I feel like Joseph Fares wanted that, but he needed like someone to help relook over the script, I guess.
I feel like this ended up being story wise, it ended up being less of a Pixar movie and more of a
DreamWorks movie.
straight. I was actually gonna go a different direction. I was gonna say one of those straight to TV Disney Channel live action movies. You know what I mean? Where it was like the ones with the where like I can never remember the movie names, especially because I watched all of those in Portuguese. But Lindsay Lohan playing the two twins,
Oh yeah, the Parent
trying.
Trap. Yeah,
Yeah, the Parent Trap, right? Like it's more like that, where it's very much like it's like a child's kind of perspective into what a relationship is like. It's not really a mature story. That's what I was trying to get to. But it's okay. Like I feel like they were not trying to make this a truly like bleak, realistic, story about relationships. It was more supposed to be fun, like a fun time. Go through some fun gameplay while watching the story about love unfold, and in the end, everything is okay and there's a happy ending. So I kind of understand it, but I want to get to the next character here, Lewis,
Oh,
if
okay.
you're okay with doing that,
Yeah, yeah, I'm good. Let's go ahead and transition. What you
which
got?
is Dr. Hakim. He is the heart. He is
Yeah.
the heart of the game, right? Like
Yes.
he's the
Show
what kind
stealer.
of
Yeah.
the show stealer. Like he's what makes this game exciting from a story and character perspective, right? Like I feel like if it wasn't for that character being so well written and well
Acted.
acted and everything, like that the game would probably not resonate nearly as much as it did with me, right? So because he just brought in the fun every time. He had so much personality. At some points, I wondered, like, is this maybe a little bit racist, like borderline racist, perhaps? I don't know, but it feels like one of those things that would be gone after, but it doesn't seem like anybody went after this one, so I guess it's okay. But I don't know. Just I had a really good time with that character. Every time he showed up on screen, I was happy. Everything he said, I was happy about. Their sentences that
As a member of the Hispanic coalition, I'll allow it.
yes, and you know there are sentences that he said like one-liners and mannerisms of that character throughout the game that I think stick with me that I already joke about with Leah. You know, I'll say things that in his voice and stuff when we're talking about you know. In fact, we had a situation where we legitimately had a fight. You know, like couples fight. It happens. And you know she was mad at me and everything and I just kind of like she was in her room or whatever. I opened the door and I was just like, "Do you want to talk about our relationship?" And then she immediately started laughing, and we were fine. And it's just I don't know. There was a lot of like coolness to his character, and it was one of my favorite parts of the game.
Nice. I was.
Yeah,
You know what? Yeah. Applause to you, Dan.
I
Uh,
could probably only use that once, by the way.
so yeah, Dr. Hakim, man, he was an interesting take on like sort of boiling down what love is. I guess I don't know.
Hmm.
It also I don't know like yes, you're the married one here. Like, do you feel like his little four steps or his things that he laid out as far as what you need to do do you feel like that's correct or do you feel like he's missing ingredients or whatever?
That's interesting. So there were what were the game kept focusing on these words,
Like
right? So
so,
like what
there's
were
teamwork, communication. I want to say passion. I don't know,
time
time.
and then attraction,
Yeah,
right?
attraction. Yeah,
Like I guess it made sense. You know, like it is obviously like what's already said. It's an oversimplification of things, right? Like um when you look into like real relationship advice and relationship counseling, I feel like it's a lot deeper than what got covered in the game. Like I don't think what got covered in the game. I wonder if any relationship counselor was involved. Or, you know, like couples counselor or whatever. Like if anybody like that was involved with in the making of this game at all. But from the content of the game, I the feeling I get is that no, there wasn't, or if there was, it was at a very limited capacity. Because um, I feel like they would have taken, like they would have taken things in a slightly different direction. And I don't know, like, cause what was the ultimate like conclusion? Like what I felt like a lot of these words they were used because they made for good gameplay mechanics, right? So like, you know, attraction, the magnets, like
yeah,
that's cool. But you know, what is that really about? Like other than just well, attraction is a word that you know has to do with relationships, but like it like do you solve a relationship with more attraction? I don't know. Attraction is just something that it's either there or it isn't, you know? Um so yeah, and you know, making time for each other, obviously that's important, right? So there were some interesting like things that were sprinkled in there, but I feel like they were very obvious and they were not deep at all.
okay,
Yeah.
that's fair enough. All right, so the next thing I want to cover here are like the chapters themselves here. So we're gonna sort of go beat by beat, uh,
Hmm.
and sort of like talk about the mechanics on each chapter. Because one of the things that I bitched about during the live stream is, like I said, that I felt like you, Dan, like Cody, he got the better mechanics than May did. So we're gonna sort of like go chapter by chapter and sort of like talk
Uh-huh.
about what each person did or over the other, and say, who got the better mechanic, so to
Okay.
speak. All right, so the game starts off in the shed, and I'll go ahead and pull up the screen here. The shed, you basically sort of go through this like quick tutorial where you're just sort of like running around, nothing major. The first mechanic doesn't even come into like after the first boss fight. We take on the vacuum cleaner, and then we finally get our first set of mechanics where I'm the hammerhead and you're the nail. And I feel like throwing
Hmm.
the nails is much cooler than just you know whacking some pieces or whatever, breaking bottles or glass jars or whatever. So I don't know. I just feel like the only good thing that I felt like I got out of it was that I got to like you got to hit the nail and I got to swing on it with the hammerhead and stuff. But
Yes.
other than that, no.
That I was gonna get to the fact that I feel like the major mechanic out the hammerhead be the swinging, because the times where we're doing different things, more often than not, I was throwing nails so that you could swing at them. So really, you were doing more of the platforming while I was creating the platforms for you to platform on. So I mean, honestly, Lewis, like I only played one character, even though I played through the whole game twice. Yeah, but I feel like I feel like I didn't get the vibe that the mechanics were like better than each other. I felt like they were just different. I feel like I always feel like it's kind of difficult to compare because it's kind of comparing apples to oranges, right? Like, do you prefer to play? It's almost like in this case, this one is almost like, do you prefer to be a melee character or a ranged character, right?
Yeah.
Because I was basically the ranged character and you were basically the melee character. Um, so sure, I'll take the point if you wanna, if you think that the nails were better, but to me, they're the same. They're just different. Um,
I had three. You got three nails, and also I do like range characters, by the way. But also
mhm.
one of the things that you got to do that I didn't is you basically had Mjolnir because you were able to whistle the nails back to you and stuff like that.
Oh yes, that was really cool. Actually, that was yeah, the way they did that, it felt just as good as it did in God of War. Just saying,
Yeah.
just
So
saying.
exactly. So you
So
clearly got the point. Just throwing that
all
out
right,
there. All right.
I'll
So
take it.
that was basically the first chapter. Let me see here. It had like the shed, the wake up call, the biting, the dust. Okay, whatever. All right. Next up, the second chapter is gonna be. Let's see. What is this called? The tree.
The
Okay,
tree.
the
Hmm.
tree. All right. So the tree. We both had the same mechanics. We both had like no. Actually, no, we didn't. I had the gel gun, and you had the fire, or was it the opposite? Hold on.
The opposite. I
Was
had the gel gun. You had the fire.
okay.
This was when the squirrel characters were introduced, which were fantastic. Also, some of the
Yes.
better characters in the game.
Yes.
Like, despite the fact that we didn't like the two lead characters, a lot of the side characters in this game were pretty good.
Yeah.
And the squirrels were great. They had this like army
Society.
personnel, like,
Yeah.
yeah, personality, and it was all really fun. And then we got to fight the wasps with the weapons that they gave us. So many explosions. It's kind of funny when you think about the setting of the game, that this game had as many explosions as it did, because I wouldn't have expected that when we started playing. But yeah, it was a really good time. And I am tempted to give you the point on this one because you got to create the explosions. I would just kind of like throw gel around and then you got to explode things. So I
Yeah.
think exploding things is more fun.
Yes. I will say I think I did get. I think I won on this one. So
Also,
what's up?
just one more thing. In this level is also when you got to do the Street Fighter fight.
Oh yes, I did. I did. Yes. Okay. You're right. I totally got to do the Street Fighter fight while you watched. Um, I guess it makes up for a way out because you got to do like the beat 'em up,
Yes.
and I got to watch. But yeah, as far as like the puzzles go, I feel like you were definitely using the gel gun to like move a lot of platforms and turbines while I, platformed a lot. So um, ultimately, like it was trying to be fair and equal with the with how things played out. But yeah, explosions are tight.
There does seem to be a bit of a standard, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, throughout the whole game, where more often than not, Cody gets to control the platforms that then May gets to platform through. So, like, it's probably best for the player who's best at platforming to be playing as May instead of Cody. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, I'm the better
Hmm.
platformer. Yeah, I would say you're right. Even the part where you were like controlling time and moving the platforms for me. So you know.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I will say you're right about the fact that a lot of the side characters that you meet along the way, such as the squirrels and the bumblebee, and like they all tend to like be shine brighter than Cody and May. Like
Hmm.
I think I actually even like the hammer and the nail better than Cody and May. Like everyone that you meet. So we'll go ahead and kick it off to the next one. So as we're gonna go to Rose's room. So apparently in Rose's room we have like a bunch of things going on where we're in her room and we're going to all these little arcade stuff. We find the a way out a way out fuck Easter egg
Oh yeah.
Easter egg.
Yes.
You know, it was really awesome. We popped the achievement and stuff like that. We just instinctively knew to like ground pound at the same time, which the game didn't tell us to do that. Um, and also we went to space, and this is the part where I want to say that you also won because I would rather be Ant Man than I don't know than what just using gravity boots to like walk up a wall and stuff like that or
I
whatever.
feel like you were basically doing like a Super Mario Galaxy kind of similar mechanics, right? Where like it's you're had these gravity boots and you're running on the walls and stuff. And I feel like I want to talk about this level actually a lot because this level is probably one of the best levels of the game. Like I felt like it was everything was very beautiful. Like the skybox in space, you could look around, everything just looked so cool. Very high hat or high res and full of effects and pretty and stuff. And the interactions with Moon Baboon were really
Oh
cool. And
yeah.
then the boss fight and having the like there's a part.
The rocket. Oh my god, shooting the with the lasers and stuff like that. Oh, that was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's the multiple Easter eggs in this chapter, right? So it's a very long chapter actually, but like you said, from the beginning where we start on Rose's room before we go into space, we got the way out Easter egg there, but then later on space, like that's when you control this radio tower, and then you can point to a lot of different locations and then like reveal all these different things that you can pick up with the radio tower, including the Oscar speech from Josef Fares. And it was also like so we got to go through these different portals and be sent to a lot of different levels within this level. And each level felt like they were doing unique, cool things with the mechanics of the game. So it just felt like they put a lot of effort into everything that went on this level, and I had a really good time with it.
I
Um,
would dare say that this might be like the peak of the game as far as gameplay wise.
Yeah. Yeah. Because up to this point, I don't know,
Oh
like I
my
feel like
god, we
up
did
to
this
this
anti-gravity thing where we were swinging on each other like a pendulum kind of thing and like
yes,
oh my
yes,
god,
there
that
was
was
that
so
as
cool.
well.
We had or do the
Like
thing where we have to like make sure to time our swing so if I let go it also drops you and all that kind of stuff and there was very head trippy stuff and you actually went inside a machine and like put a battery in and stuff like that as a little
yes,
tiny guy.
yes.
Um,
And it was when we got to this level, like up to on the two previous levels, I was like, oh, this is cool, this is fun, like it's a platformer. We're going through, this Honey I Shrunk the Kids world or
yeah,
whatever, and doing these fun things. But it was when we got to this level that I was like, oh, okay, they can get really creative with this. They can get big, they can go weird, and I feel like this level kind of sets the tone for a lot of the things that they do later on in the game, where it's like, oh, it's no longer just,
realism.
you're
Yeah,
yeah, realism.
realism.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
we're going off the wall here. It's getting very artistic, right?
Yeah, and that's when I think I even noticed like where I said like I don't know if it was this level or then like the next level where I said on the live stream where I was like they sure are playing with scale because at one time like they're this big and sometimes they're like like the
Mm-hmm.
size of a doll like a human can hold and they're really like playing with like the sense of how tall these characters are supposed to be. And I guess they didn't really care because I guess gameplay whatever. So especially when they fit inside a snow globe. So um,
Yes.
but yeah, I think that was really interesting and very unique because like this game really like sort of like opened the door for where the game can go because we were sort of like thinking that we were just gonna be like yeah like Honey I Shrunk the Kids where we're just gonna be going through like actual like trees and and
Yeah,
grass and
exactly.
stuff like
Like
that.
I was under the expectation before that we're just kind of gonna stay within the house
Yeah,
with animated anthropomorphic versions of the things in the house. But then this level sent us to space, right? And they did some other weird stuff later on. So yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. So shout out to this level, and yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. And this is the part where again I okay. So far I think you're 2 for 1 as far as the wins, and this is where you go 3 for 1 because the next level is the cuckoo clock, where I think you going to being able to rewind and fast forward through time is way better than being able to drop a clone of myself and just teleport. That's
Yeah.
kind of basic, if anything.
And
From
and I will say this, that like in this level, I feel like a lot of the mechanics, they're set up in a way where um they're almost like a little like puzzle key, right? Like the rewinding of the time, especially in this case, I couldn't just do it like randomly.
yeah,
It was a key that was put in certain places where it's like, okay, to solve the puzzle, you got to go on this location, you got to rewind the time to do something. So it didn't feel as much like a full on mechanic that gave me freedom. It was more of just like, oh, you got to get like a contextual, like it might as well have been like a quick time event kind of thing when I got to those points. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like a full on mechanic that was built to be used whatever. It was in these moments I can do this, but it was still really cool to do. I think with a mechanic such as rewinding time, that was the best they could really do to make something interesting in the game and make it work and not cause any issues. Um,
fair enough.
but sorry, can you remind me what was your? Oh yeah, the clone. Okay, so that's what I was gonna get to. I feel like the clone was a missed opportunity because
Oh,
I feel like they could have done something better with the idea of cloning yourself.
what's kind of interesting is whenever they were giving the cutscene and stuff like that, and they were talking about like a clone like I can be in two places at once. My first thought was Super Mario 3D World with the cherry
Yes,
Mario power up. You know what I mean? But it just kind of felt like they
it
overstated like it's a clone. Oh, you can just put your marker there and then you can just
it
zap over there.
wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't as much of a cloning. It was almost like a teleporting, right? Like you had to like put like it was almost like you picked a place to teleport to, and I feel like it could have been more interesting if they figure out a way to instead let you control both clones. Like maybe it would make the input a little bit more complex. But what if you could place the clone, and then from that point on, as you moved around and moved both characters, but you could choose to switch. Like you could choose to control both characters. Maybe it's like you press like R1 or something,
It's
and
kind
you
of
switch.
like Luigi's Mansion 3 with Luigi, where you can like sort of make him
Yes.
fall over, and he's like laying there asleep and waiting for you to take control over him whenever you're playing as Luigi in one player mode.
Yes. So I was kind of expecting them to do something similar, more similar to Guigi than what they did. Because what
Yeah,
they did, it was just like you teleport you never really had the two characters existing at once,
right.
right? Or I guess you would, but then only until you teleported. But
So what's
anyway,
interesting is like
yeah.
I will say they did try to make up for that suck ass mechanic, which I guess is I'm overstating that, I'm over exaggerating, but they did try to make up for it by having the most creative, unique puzzles where like the bird cage where you have to put your marker there so that way you can teleport inside the bird cage, or like these platforms
Hmm.
where you're like shifting time where you can like oh, I need to stand over here, so let me just put my marker here so that way you can make the platform and all this other stuff, and they were doing cool things with it, don't get me wrong, but ultimately I felt like you getting to just do this thing with the left trigger or the right trigger or whatever, and just I thought that seemed more enticing for me on a gameplay level.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. Most of the mechanics were not necessarily that cool by themselves, but they found ways to make them cool in combination, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, when you really think about it, if it was a single player game, like neither the time mechanic, the way it was implemented, nor the clone mechanic are really that interesting. But the way that we used them together
It's a
was
puzzles,
what
yeah.
made it. Yeah, the self puzzles was what made it cool.
You know
Yeah.
what? I will say this: the cuckoo clock, whatever, probably the best puzzles in the game, maybe.
Yeah, they had some really good puzzles there. You're
Yeah.
right.
All right. So 3 for 1, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll go
Yes.
ahead and move on to the next one, and this is the snow globe. and we both got the same mechanic, so it's a tie. We both got the magnet hammer.
Yes, that's true.
The only difference is we got different color magnets and stuff like that, so we get to like push and pull different things.
Which is funny how in the beginning, like Dr. Hakim explains that, like it's like one is positive, the other is negative, and then May says that's not how magnets work, and he says not these magnets, because real magnets, the moment you break them apart, each part then starts to have the positive and the negative. Yeah, I'm not, I didn't major in physics, so I can't really explain to you why it works that way, but it works that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, I don't know. Like, does it feel like this level was like, I don't know, like lacking? Because I feel like by this time in the game, we had already visited towns, like a full on like town with like
Hmm.
subways or train stations and like big open world vista parts. And I feel like this one wasn't that same big open world that I was expecting. I don't know, like there was open world ish parts and stuff like a little club scene where we get to put on hats and stuff, and then they take them away when we got too far away. But ultimately, like I feel like this one wasn't as big as other open world parts or open world sections in the game previously up until now.
I want to point out, going back a little bit to Rose's room, that we talked a lot part, but the space part was just a part of that chapter because it also included things like
The
the
train set.
dinosaur
Uh,
segment or the circus or there were all these like sub chapters within that
oh,
chapter that
the
were
boat
completely
ride.
different from each
Yeah,
other. The
the roller
boat,
coaster.
exactly.
The roller coaster.
Yeah, there was like so much going on in that level, right? So compared to that level, some of these other levels may not seem as good. But I actually did like the snow globe quite a bit. I feel like there is this no town that at first we came in and we're like, oh, this is a little weird. We looked at everything and there's nothing there.
Oh
And then
yeah.
as we started doing things, it started basically unlocking more things for us to do. Um, and I will also give a shout out, like I done before, to the ice skating in the game. I thought it felt really good. The snowball fighting, being able to just kind of throw snowballs at each other, all these little things.
The icicle fight.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, and
All those little
also
things that made it fun.
I won that Olympic game. What is it called? Let me see here. Let me pull it up here.
Curling,
Curling,
right?
yeah, curling, yeah, that's the one. Uh, so yeah, that was. I thought I was gonna lose that one, but anyways, yeah. This one was. You know what? I will say that one of the funner things about this level was whenever we got to like time it together, where we got like magnetized to each other from across like a long distance and stuff like that. I think us
Yeah.
having to brave like a snowstorm where we have to like hold on to like this like pole that was there was very nice and stuff like that. You know, if this game was on PS5, or I'm sure it is, I would like to see like haptic feedback be a part of that kind of
Oh yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
But we played this game on Xbox. But ultimately, like this is like the turning point in the story. I would say like this level is like the part where you start to believe that maybe these characters will reconcile.
Yes. That's true.
All right, so 3 for 1 still. This one is the garden. This is the part where one of the final 2 chapters here, where we're about to unlock our passions. And then first one up was Cody. He decides to unlock his passion. And let me tell you this: I feel like you getting to go inside these plants and stuff like that and become like these like different like Mario power ups and stuff, where you're like this giant vine that can grow or do all these other
Yes.
things. I think you were better and you were cooler and than me because all I did was water the plants. So or
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah. So you were basically Mario Sunshine while I
Yeah,
was, Mario 64 or
Odyssey.
Mario Galaxy or something. Odyssey. There we go. And you know what? Actually, Odyssey is the best comparison of them all because you actually get to turn into things that you throw your hat at in
Yeah,
Mario Odyssey, and that felt the most like this. Yeah. So this was one of the levels where I felt like it looked really pretty. I liked some of the scenes in the garden. I thought it looked really cool. The whole scene that you just passed by in the thing with the moles was a lot of fun as well. Um, but once again, probably not as good as some of the earlier levels. Oh, this also had the secret room, the spa room,
oh
where we
yes.
got a bunch of achievements where it was like this spa that was ran by like bugs
Oh my god, it
in
was
the
so
garden.
funny. The
Yeah, that was really
massages.
funny.
Yeah, yeah, that was actually good. I actually liked that one. That really brought a smile to my face. So yes. Ultimately, I would say that this one is definitely like the best graphical showcase of the game. I would say.
Hmm.
Uh, so kudos to them on that one. We'll go ahead and move on to the final chapter, which just takes
I
us to the.
also,
Oh, what's up?
really quick, shout out to the frogs as characters as well. They were pretty funny too.
Shout out to the spiders as well because we got to ride the spiders.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, that was some cool ass Spider-Man action where we were like, going through this like this log that's like turning, kind of like Mario Kart 8. Whenever you're just anti
Yes.
gravity kind of stuff. The final chapter, the attic, and this is the part where May finds her passion. And again, in my own chapter, I get the shittier mechanic. All I did was sing, and you got to be Captain America.
Okay.
So I'm just
I'll,
saying, you
yeah.
got to like throw it and bounce back, and I just kind of did like I'm basically Sindel from Mortal Kombat and just sort of like scream and project out like scream like a screech or something like that, or into a microphone, and I don't know. It just it wasn't all that interesting. And there was also another mechanic that they didn't even really take advantage of. She had two mechanics where she can like projectile scream, and then she can also just sort of hum and just sort of like sing. And in certain platforms, that when she sings, it levitates. And they didn't really do a
Mhm.
lot with that mechanic where she's sort of like
You're right.
humming and keeping a platform steady or whatever. So
Yeah, I feel like they could have done a little bit more with that. And the other thing that I found funny about this level is that they kept kind of shifting the goalpost, where it was like at first they said like, "Oh, you got to find, the instruments and whatever." It was like three things: the lights
the
and the
symphony,
mics.
yeah, or oh yeah,
And
no,
then we found those three things that were each like a different level, basically.
yeah,
And then they were like, "Oh, okay, now you need a band." And then we found them, and then it's like, "Okay, now you need an audience." And it just felt like they kept like adding more things. Um, but it was cool. I felt like this level had like number one, very good music, which you would expect from a level like this. I felt like specifically the part where we got to create our own track
track,
and that played for
yes,
a while. That was really cool.
yes.
Um, the whole like like the little DJing segment with the whatever are they called? Forgot now. Um,
Talking about this thing right here,
the glow
or
sticks is what I was
oh, the
thinking
glow
of.
sticks. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, and you get to see all the glow sticks dancing as we're like DJing and
Oh
stuff. Like that
yeah,
was
we
a
were
fun
playing
part as
like basically
well.
like a rhythm game and stuff like that in there.
Yes. Um.
I got
So
to play the
lots.
piano as well in the game, like
Yep.
actually play the piano. Um, but yeah, um, this one was definitely a good way of end capping the game. I would say overall, um, it definitely was interesting that I was sort of predicting like one of two things with the ending of the game where I was expecting like a boss rush where all the side characters came back and all the mechanics that we've done so far just sort of like we sort of just like power through it and stuff like that as like a final like little
Mm-hmm.
like end of a video game kind of thing, but they didn't do that, which I guess they wanted to go for the more emotional payoff, which again
Mm-hmm.
is debatable. But yeah, ultimately, like that score puts you at 4-1, I would say, for cooler mechanics.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you can't argue with that. I could argue with a few of them, but I feel like at the end of the day, it would still probably lean Cody's way as far as funner mechanics. Although I do think a lot of them are more like it's like they're more different than they are, better or worse. But as far as general thoughts go, I'm surprised we haven't talked about the Rose yet,
oh yes, we
who's
can.
the daughter, right?
Let's close out on her because we have a couple of things to say on her because number one, her character model weird AF. Number two, her
Mm-hmm.
character didn't really have any time to shine. Number three,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that she blamed herself came out of nowhere, seemingly nowhere from a story perspective. So I don't know. I don't know if they handled her well. So
I didn't think so either, and I feel like that's another one of those potential like missed opportunities of the game where um I don't feel like she was a well fleshed out character. And a lot of times she kind of just felt like a plot device, but she didn't feel like a full character really, and
very
we couldn't
wooden
really
at
get.
times and stuff like that. Very like emotionless, kind of like
Yeah.
faceless kind of character. It's not. I don't know if it's like they're trying to sort of like pin it on like the fact that oh she's traumatized and stuff like that because even
Yeah.
before they even broke the news to her, she didn't seem like to have much of a
Well,
personality.
there's this part where they say something akin to like, "Oh, it would be hard to make her cry. She'd never cry," or something along those lines, right? Which is very weird to say about a child that is seemingly like, I don't know, 10 years old or younger or something. And I just I just kind of got this vibe. So like to me, that shows that they intentionally made her kind of emotionless, right? But it just seems like a weird choice to me, like to create a character to represent a child, like such an important aspect of the story, right? Because she's really what in some ways, well, she is who puts these two characters in their adventure, and she's also in some ways what brings them together at the end. I feel like she's the core of the story in a lot of ways, and I don't feel like she was handled well. And I don't know if it was, I kind of don't want to blame it on the actress, like on the voice actress. I don't think it was as much the delivery as it was the directing and potentially the writing.
Mm,
So I definitely think that could have been done a little bit better. Like they could have made her a more likable um character as a child. Like this whole game is set up in a child like world, right? It so many things are seen almost like through a childlike perspective, that I feel like the child in the game should have been better portrayed.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I totally agree with you on that one. Like, it really did feel like she almost kind of felt like a bit of an afterthought if you think about it. Like, it just,
Yeah.
especially with her ending being tacked on, is like, oh, I wrote you a letter. I'm gonna go away so you guys can be friends. Just love each
Yeah.
other. Like, what the hell? And then,
Yeah.
and the worst
Something.
part is when they told her like, no, no, baby, it's not your fault, and she's like, it's not. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Yeah.
so like it just kind of maybe okay. I'll give you the. I would say it's a little bit delivery on that one, just because of
Yeah.
just how like utterly like I don't know. It doesn't feel. She doesn't feel like, I guess, for the lack of a better word, human enough. If I were to say
Yeah. I'll tell you this. It didn't feel like she had a soul.
yes,
And it was a problem. Something Leah said was that she thought, she sounded like an adult. Like she sounded like an adult playing a kid and not like a kid, right?
right,
Um, and I kind of got a little bit of that too. So yeah, that's just one of the. So if we're kind of trying to bring it all together, I feel like the cons of the game mostly concentrate on some of the delivery of the characters and the story. But then on the pro side, we got, phenomenal gameplay, really fun mechanics, um, good graphics, I guess, like just like beautiful designs of these worlds and great puzzles and all that stuff, right?
yeah,
Um, but and obviously Dr. Hakim,
yes.
yeah, Dr. Hakim and the side
The side
characters, right?
characters, yeah.
So
So yeah, I would say my only cons are the story and the characters. I would say everything
yeah,
else just sort of like is peak everything. I would even say like soundtrack is even on point too.
and you know what? As we had this conversation, I've decided to lower my score from a 9.5 to a 9.
I was
So
actually about to say that.
mhm.
I after having discussed this all with you, I raised my score from an 8.5 to a 9.
All right, so we
So
actually end up meeting in the same score at the end somehow,
I was literally about to say
because
that next. I was like, oh, I was like very much like after like revisiting all these chapters and all these like these moments and stuff like in my mind, it just sort of like brings that like happiness, that whimsy, and just like that little bit like polish. We just need that better script and stuff like that. I really do
yeah,
think that Joseph Fares was trying to make a Pixar film, and I don't know if he said that
yeah,
publicly or not, but it just feels like he's got that ambition and knowing how, what
hmm
he says in these interviews, and I'm pretty sure he does. And just a little bit of better care to the writing and to the acting in certain parts, but just more like going back to looking at the script and seeing how well you tackle these thematic or deep or problems when it comes to a relationship, because that's a very complex thing that you could tackle. I think if there
yeah,
was a way to do it, like if Pixar were to make this movie, they would do it way better somehow. Like I believe
yeah.
it. So
And if this was just an animated movie as is, this would have been like an okay animated. Like it wouldn't be amongst the great animated movies. So I think that's a good point, right? So
yes, yes,
obviously it's a 9 out of 10 game, both of us, and I kind of weight the game part a lot more than I do the story in this case, just because I felt like it was really so good. But the story itself is what kind of brings it down from a 10, right? Like if it was the same gameplay but the story was just a little better. The story was just closer to being more of that Pixar level, a little bit more mature, a little bit like better written with characters that are better portrayed and more interesting and a little bit more likable. Like this could have been 10 to me,
Yes.
but that's kind of the only thing that makes it shy from it.
Yeah, I was more emotionally like distraught after having played A Way Out than I was this game. So,
Yeah, the same. Yeah.
so yeah. With that being said, I think that that's a good place to end it there. I think we've covered everything from the mini games to the chapters to the Easter eggs, the story, and everything in between. So, really, I think that's like a pretty. I did a pretty damn good job of hosting this DLC spoiler cast here.
Yeah,
So,
you're right. And also, surprisingly, this is one of our longest spoiler casts. I think it's only behind The Last of Us Part 2, where we ran for like 2 hours. Yeah.
all right. So I'm not gonna do the whole like outro, like it's dun 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 dun. I'm just gonna say let's just end it here. So yeah, thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in for the spoiler cast. Be sure to check in on Friday, like every Friday, to our normal canon episodes and everything. And yeah, I'm on Twitter at Chakalaka88 and Dan.
At the De Lima.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Bye bye.